In a quiet corner of 19th century America lived a woman who would become one of literature's greatest enigmas. A recluse who rarely left her home, yet whose mind traveled across galaxies and into the very heart of eternity. This is the story of Emily Dickinson, the poet in white, whose verses were whispers meant for a future she would never see. But what if the story we know is only a fraction of the truth? What if the quiet spinster of Amherst was guarding a secret far more profound than her poetry? Born in 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts, Emily was, by all early accounts, a bright and sociable young woman. She excelled at the Amherst Academy and even spent a year at Mount Holyoke Female Seminary. Her letters from this time are filled with wit, affection, and a keen observation of the world around her. She loved to bake, she adored her garden, and she cherished her family and a small circle of friends. So, what happened? What transformed this vibrant young woman into the spectral figure who, for the last 2 decades of her life, communicated with the world almost exclusively through letters and poems passed through a barely opened door? The common narrative points to a series of emotional blows, failed romances, the deaths of loved ones, and a profound spiritual crisis are often cited as the catalysts for her withdrawal. Her correspondence with figures like the minister Charles Wadsworth and the editor Thomas Wentworth Higginson reveals a soul grappling with immense questions of faith, love, death, and immortality. It was in this self-imposed solitude that her poetic genius ignited. She began to experiment with language in ways no one had before, breaking the rules of grammar and punctuation to create a style that was uniquely her own. Her poems were short, sharp, and packed with explosive meaning. A slant rhyme here, a dash there, each choice was deliberate, a piece of a puzzle she was assembling in private. But here's where the story takes a turn. While the world saw a recluse, a closer look at her life reveals a woman in complete command of her own universe. Her withdrawal wasn't a retreat from the world, but a rejection of its limitations. The patriarchal society of her time had little room for a woman of her intellectual and creative ambition. By staying within the confines of her home, she created a space where she was free. Free from social obligations, free from the judgment of a literary world that wasn't ready for her, and free to dedicate herself entirely to her craft. Her room wasn't a prison, it was a laboratory, and the subject of her experiments was nothing less than the human soul. She wrote nearly 1,800 poems, but fewer than a dozen were published in her lifetime, and even those were heavily edited to fit conventional standards. She carefully copied her poems into small, hand-sewn booklets she called fascicles, essentially creating her own volumes of work, curated and preserved for a future reader she trusted would one day understand. But was there another, more hidden reason for her seclusion? Some scholars have pointed to a debilitating eye condition that made bright light painful. Others suggest chronic illness. These theories add another layer of complexity to her story, suggesting her retreat was not just a choice, but a necessity. Imagine the strength it would take to turn such a physical constraint into a source of immense creative power. Confined to dim rooms, her inner vision became extraordinarily sharp. She saw the anguish of a single frame, the certain slant of light on a winter afternoon, and the moment a soul selects her own society. Her poetry is a testament to the power of the human mind to transcend physical boundaries. But the most compelling mystery of all lies not in why she hid, but in what she was writing about. Her poems are filled with coded language, riddles, and ambiguities. For decades, biographers and critics tried to fit her into a neat box: the heartbroken spinster, the timid mystic. They sanitized her life and her work, erasing the raw passion, the intellectual ferocity, and the profound doubt that seethes beneath the surface of her verse. They smoothed over her intense, and possibly romantic, relationships with both men and women, particularly with her sister-in-law, Susan Gilbert Dickinson. This relationship, documented in hundreds of passionate letters and poems, was the central emotional connection of Emily's life. Was it the fear of exposing the true nature of this love that contributed to her retreat and the secrecy surrounding her work? The story of Emily Dickinson doesn't end with her death in 1886. In fact, that's when it truly begins. Her younger sister, Lavinia, discovered the locked chest containing the treasure trove of poems. What followed was a family drama of epic proportions, a battle for control over Emily's legacy, involving sanitized editions, burned letters, and decades of scholarly detective work to piece together the real Emily Dickinson. The poet who wrote "Tell all the truth but tell it slant" seemed to have orchestrated her own posthumous discovery, leaving behind a trail of beautiful, challenging, and deeply mysterious clues. Her poems weren't just poems, they were time capsules. And now, for the most startling possibility of all. What if Emily Dickinson's withdrawal wasn't just about creating a space for her art, or hiding from a world that wouldn't understand her? What if it was about something else entirely? Consider the sheer volume and consistency of her work. Nearly 1,800 poems, written in a frenzy of creativity, often late into the night. She wrote of a wrecked, solitary here, and being lodged with the sun. She describes visions, out-of-body experiences, and a deep connection to a cosmic consciousness. Here's the twist you never saw coming. What if Emily Dickinson wasn't just a poet? Recent fringe theories, pieced together from her most cryptic verses and letters, propose a radical idea. They suggest that Emily, through her deep introspection and unique sensory experience, perhaps heightened by her medical conditions, had stumbled upon a way to perceive reality differently. That her dashes weren't just punctuation, but representations of pauses, of breaths, of gaps in consensus reality through which she could glimpse something else. The poems, then, were not just metaphors for life and death. They were field notes. They were her attempts to document a state of consciousness, a form of perception that she alone had access to. Her isolation wasn't a retreat. It was a necessary condition for her work. The outside world, with its noise and demands, would have shattered this fragile connection. She wasn't a recluse hiding from the world. She was an explorer, charting the furthest reaches of the human mind, and her poems are the maps she left behind. The woman in white wasn't a ghost. She was a voyager to eternity. Thank you so much for watching. The story of Emily Dickinson reminds us that the greatest worlds are often hidden in the quietest places. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Impact Figures for more stories that challenge the known. See you next time.